Welcome back to Fill Paper Roulette. This is roulette attempt number 6. I've been going through just random papers off fillpapers.com, or you can get on the interwebs. If you have a suggestion, send it to me. Put in a comment. Tell me what you like, what you don't. I'm going to be doing these things live more in the future. I'll try to schedule that so you can tell me when I'm wrong, when I don't know something, which is probably always, so don't do that. Yeah, actually, no, do that. Comment on my stuff, but I'm just going to go look for something new to review since we're all stuck indoors. The Hexaity Euthyphro problem. Hexatism is a thesis that necessarily, in addition to its qualities, each thing has a hexaity or individual essence. The purpose of this paper is to expose a flaw in hexatism. It entails that familiar cases of fission and fusion either admit of no explanation or else they admit of explanations too bizarre to warrant serious consideration. Because of the explanatory problem we raise for hexatism closely resembles Euthyphro problem for divine command theory, we refer to it as, you know something? Yeah, no, let's just not do that one. Logic of confounders, object moving spotlight, stake sensitive constitutive, responsibility, systemic evaluation, review, knowledge to fact arguments can deliver knowledge, objective becoming, in search of anus. You know, there's always a problem when you're using like variables, because you get to the A, B, C, then you get like the P and the Q. But if you go with the Q-ness and the P-ness, then you get all sorts of difficulties when you're saying stuff. Could the grounds grounding the grounded ground the grounded? Well, you see, you got 153 downloads for Woodchuck Chucking, so hopefully maybe it's good. Actually, I think we were just talking about Litland in one of the previous episodes. I think it was by Chris McDaniel. Maybe they write these things together. Epistemic norm corresponds and the belief assertion parallel. I don't want to talk about epistemic norms at the moment. J.C. Beale, God of the Gaps, and get the respond to God's stone problem. I mean, that would be a dialethic thing. Yes, essential indexicals are essential. Summary. Color hallucination, new problem for externalist representation. It's also phenomenal have a visual perceptual. We just did virtual perceptual experience. Let's do something different. Responsibility from the margins. Let's open that one up quick. Berkeley's puzzle. Alan Millar. Alright, maybe there's a review or something. I can't download it, so I can't really know what Berkeley's puzzle is. The phenomenal hypothesis. Epistemology modality. A survey. Don't need a survey. Truth and truth bearers. I wonder if they're like truth makers. Logical anti, exceptional and theoretical. I think I've heard this guy talk. What else we got? Lawful mimickers. Okay, that sounds like fun. The gnomic view of dispositions holds that properties confer dispositions on their bearers with no nomological necessity. The argument against gnomic dispositions challenges the gnomic view. If the gnomic view is true, then objects don't have disposition but mimic them. This paper presents an explication of disposition conferral, which shows that the gnomic view is not subject to this objection. It's like, okay, there's an objection, we're going to respond to it. I'm not like super sold on that. Similarity and enjoyment, predicting continuation for women in philosophy. Okay, this is profession stuff, religious faith and intellectual virtue. I haven't done anything like that in a while. I know nothing about it. Can I download it? No. Can't download. Okay, I'm not going to bother then. No more time slices. We were doing similar stuff to that a few videos ago. How I learned to worry about the spaghetti western. Collective responsibility and collective agency. Alright, spaghetti westerns. I like the idea of spaghetti. I'm kind of hungry right now. But if it's not available to download, what do you want me to do? Pullman's skeptical argument, what we cannot argue for with skeptical arguments. Extended rationality, potentiality. Potential what? The divisibility of basic actions. I don't know about that. I don't believe you. Veter's potentiality is an exposition and development of a new account of possible necessity given in terms of potentialities. And critical notice. Imagination and convention. Dagnabbit. I mean, I have to go to the scientific hub to find these things sometimes. But, ResearchGate. Okay. That's okay, as long as I can download it. Okay. Alrighty, so here we go. This is, I guess, Fill Paper Roulette 6, Imagination Convention by Diana Mazzarella. Oh, this is a review. Dagnabbit. Boo. Cognitive penetration hypnosis and imagination. The thesis of cognitive penetrability, according to which cognition can affect perceptual experiences. I don't want to talk about perceptual experiences. We did that not that long ago. Continued existence in iterative modality, epistemic norms. Sorry. Impossible worlds and metaphysical explanation. Reality is not structured. Jeremy Goodman. I think I've heard Jeremy Goodman speak before. You see, it's going to be some logic stuff. I don't want to have to read the logic stuff out, though. Valuing and believing valuable. Okay. Robbie Kubala. Okay, so 10 pages, double spaced. Not terrible. What is the relation between valuing something and believing it valuable? Okay. Some philosophers think that one cannot believe that something is valuable without valuing it oneself. Michael Smith claims that valuing is believing valuable. So valuing is as valuing does. Scanlon proposes to claim that something is valuable, that is, it is of value, is to claim that others also have reason to value it as you do. Okay, so If it's good for me, it's good for you. But as David Lewis points out, circularity threatens any analysis of valuing in terms of believing variable that fails to explain what believing variable consists in. Apart from the structural or logical worry, many philosophers have lately appreciated that, as a matter of psychological fact, one can believe something valuable without valuing it oneself. So yeah, you could have, like, say you don't want kids, but you understand that they are valuable to somebody else. Gary Watson notes that his own earlier work conflates valuing with judging good, which is a mistake because judging good has no invariable connection with motivation. Sigrun Svarvarsdottir, I don't know how to say that, writes that there is a difference between propositional attitude of judging the Icelandic sagas valuable and being emotionally motivated, invested in this genre of literature in the way that amounts to valuing. Yeah, you could know that something is culturally important and not actually. If it's not your culture, you just have no connection to it. You'd be like, well, those things that those other people believed a long time ago are very interesting, but not my cup of tea. Further examples are not difficult to come by. This phenomenon, believing valuable without valuing, does not necessarily indicate a failure of rationality or wholeheartedness, but rather reflects the effective and temporal boundedness of human existence. Sure. Valuing comprises a set of emotional attitudes and motivational dispositions towards the object of value. While we are limited in our ability to value, the number of things whose value we can judge is in principle unlimited. Yeah. I agree that one can believe that something is valuable without valuing it. My aim in this paper is to argue that one can value something without believing it to be valuable. Can value... Oh, so you're going the other way. Okay. Any theory of subjective value needs to account for both these phenomena. I can best argue for this thesis by explaining my divergence from one recent account of valuing, namely Samuel Scheffler's complex syndrome view. Scheffler proposes 4 necessary conditions on non-instrumental valuing. 1. A belief that X is good or valuable or worthy. 2. A susceptibility to experience a range of context-dependent emotions regarding X. 3. A disposition to experience these emotions as being merited or appropriate. 4. A disposition to treat certain kinds of X-related, that's kind of a funny statement because X-related considerations as reasons for action in relevant deliberative contexts. According to Scheffler, if I value opera going, for instance, or hyphen maybe, then first I must believe that opera going is valuable. Maybe it's a word, I don't know. Like opera going? Yeah. Second, I must be prone to experience certain emotions in response to activities associated with opera going, such as ecstasy on hearing the finality of Wagner's I can't speak German, Gotterdammerung, or disappointment when a performer is cancelled due to bad weather, or the COVID-19. Third, I must be disposed to experience these emotions as appropriate. There is a question, which I address below, as to how to understand this condition, but at a minimum, it must rule out cases of conflicting emotions, such as being embarrassed about being moved to sadness at the end of the third act, or troubled by my distress at being unable to secure tickets to a premiere. Fourth, it must tend to give opera-related activities at least some deliberative priority. Alright, is there anything here? Yeah, these are just conditions. My claim is that just as an agent can meet condition 1 without meeting all 4 conditions, so can an agent meet 2 to 4 without meeting condition 1. Okay, so let's go look at that. You can be susceptible, disposed, and add it to your deliberative without thinking it's good or worthy. Yeah. As a matter of psychological fact, it is possible to value something now understood as meeting conditions 4 without believing it valuable. This phenomenon might be brought in about one of 2 ways, which I call ignorance and denial. Ignorance describes a kind of case in which one values something without any conscious awareness that one values it, only in being brought to recognize that one is emotionally susceptible to it in a position to judge it valuable. My example will be gradually developing an appreciation of something. Denial describes the kind of case in which one is in a position to make a judgment and denies the object as valuable. My examples here are so-called guilty pleasures, such as trashy television shows. Okay, so we've got the, this is in some sense, you got the split, this is a split brain, sort of strategy. You can do something without knowing it, that's ignorance, and you can do something without admitting you like it. Or thinking you're not, like, you deny it. So, you get a lot of, there's both of these all the time. I always wonder exactly how deep denial and ignorance run, not for people, because clearly they run extremely deep, but how philosophically strong they are as argumentative philosophical strategies. Anyway, it happens a lot, so who am I to complain? Before turning to the examples, two initial clarifications are in order concerning conditions 1 and 3 respectively. Scheffler initially introduces 1 as a view of the objects of one's attitude as being good or worthy or valuable, but he then modifies view to belief when also employing the notion of judgments of value. Since Scheffler says little about what kinds of attitude belief is, or the difference between belief and judgment, I propose, for the purpose of to understand judgment as active belief formation and belief as a wider notion encompassing not only conscious but also dispositional and implicit varieties. Okay, definitions. Concerning condition 3, Scheffler says a little about what it is to experience an emotion as appropriate. He does, however, presume a close connection between experiencing one's emotion as appropriate and believing their object to be valuable. Alright, so you don't feel shame about, like, your emotions when it's appropriate. A connection that admits of two interpretations. The first, which Scheffler favors, is that my belief that an object is valuable partially explains why I experience my reactions as appropriate, and the second is that my belief is partially constituted by such an experience. Yeah. Since I want to prize apart conditions 1 and 3, I cannot accept the first interpretations, though I concede that the second may be true in some cases of valuing. Yeah. My arguments require the claim that we can sometimes experience our emotions as appropriate without believing their objects to be good. See, here's the thing, like, if these things are too close together, the split brain theory that's going to be presented here is not going to be not going to go through. So if there's too much overlap, if they're partially constituted, as he says, belief is constituted by experience. So it's like something. If it's there's too many things that are connected, then you won't be able to deny them, because the denial will be part of the experience. You're denying the experience, but you like the experience, or you're valuing it, so you can't do that. Same with the ignorance. If the experience is too tightly connected to your valuation, then you won't be able to be ignorant of the experience. So okay, but that's fine. Just because you don't. This isn't a. This is just not a deficiency. It's just part of. This is not exactly what the author is. Robbie Kubala is arguing for. You know, when I saw the name, I was really hoping the person's first name was Kubala. I've never heard that before. I thought that was a cool first name, but Robbie's a good name too for a first name. Turning now to the main arguments, consider the example of Raphael, whose story will illustrate first ignorance and then later on denial. Initially, Raphael believes that professional sports are not valuable. That is, he deems that athletes are financially overcompensated relative to their social utility. Well, that doesn't mean anything. Of course they are, but that's not going to say sports are not valuable. That sports aficionados create artificial group rivals that occasionally dispose them to violence, and that spectators are generally wasting their time. But after living in Munich during the 2008 European Cup, Raphael becomes caught up in the excitement and begins spending time watching the matches in pubs, learning more about German players, and discussing football with friends. That is, he begins to treat certain football-related considerations as providing reasons for action, meeting condition 4. You know, you don't have to even do any of that. You could just avoid the hell out of it, and he probably was, and that would meet condition 4. I mean, it already becomes something, a deliberative act. He becomes susceptible to experience certain emotions, including frustration when Spain scores a goal in the final and disappointment when Germany loses, meeting condition 2. And he experiences these emotions as merited, meeting condition 3. He takes his frustration and disappointment to be appropriate to their objects and is not ashamed of his ardor in the stands. Yet he does not judge football to be valuable, even though he meets all the conditions on valuing. This is a case of ignorance. So he's basically ignorant of how much he's enjoying himself. He's like, I love doing all this stuff, but it's stupid. Okay. An objector could point out that even though Raphael might not have the current thought that football is good or worthy or valuable, he might be disposed to believe that it is on the basis of evidence provided by the examples thus far. Employing a distinction from Robert Audi, we can assume that Raphael does not have a dispositional belief that football is valuable, antecedently held but yet unarticulated. Yeah, so he's unclear about his own attachment to the game. But then the objector, assuming he has an account like Scheffler's, would have to modify condition 1, having disposition to believe X is valuable. Yeah, see? Okay, fair enough. You'd have to complicate condition 1. This would already be significant since it would turn out not only that a belief is not necessary for valuing, but that conditions 2 to 4 are explanatory prior to condition 1. Yeah, I think that might be right. You sometimes realize only when you lose something that how much you valued it. You didn't know ahead of time. You miss it. Given Raphael's previous conscious belief that football was not valuable, it would seem that the only grounds for attributing a disposition to believe the contrary would be these recent emotional and behavioral changes. Yeah, maybe it's like you realize how you're acting. Sometimes you do like what you're doing, and you don't always realize that ahead of time. It's like, yeah. Cases of denial require even more decisive modification to a Scheffler-like account. Consider Raphael at a slightly later time. He has been made aware of his own valuing dispositions with regard to football and is asked whether following sport is a worthy pursuit. And suppose he still says no. Well, it's like smoking. You're killing yourself. Is it worthy? But maybe you damn well like it. If we take Raphael at his word, there are at least 2 different analytical possibilities here, one of which may be amenable to the complex syndrome view, but another of which is not. The first possibility is that Raphael does not really value football at all, but rather something like a heightened atmosphere of the tournament, the buzz, such that the proper object of his valuing is not football itself, but the event of the European Cup, which grips a large population and brings otherwise disparate people together. So you don't like the game, you like the party. In valuing the buzz, he would meet conditions 2 to 4, but he would also judge the buzz to be valuable. For instance, because he judges activities valuable when they promote social cohesion. In fact, the best way of determining whether football is the proper object of Raphael's valuing would be to observe his behavior after the tournament. If he continues to take an interest in football matches, if he watches the matches and discusses players with friends and experiences relevant emotions when the teams he supports win or lose, then it seems likely that he actually does value football and not merely the buzz of the tournament. I don't know if that's fair. You may not really care about the sport, but you may care about the social interactions, and if you don't follow the sport at all, you can't talk about the sport in a coherent way, and that would limit your social interactions. So you could really hate the sport, but love everything around the sport, and it would be kind of painful, but you force yourself to learn about all the players, but that way you'd have important things to say, and then you'd be more like a analyst, where you're sort of dispassionately discussing the sport. Granted, it'd be sort of a waste of your life to dedicate learning stuff just to talk to people about it. If you really don't like it, go get some different hobbies. But yeah, it does happen. Thus, one way to preserve a complex syndrome analysis would be to invigorate the proper object of valuing more finely, or to reconsider exactly which object the valuing agent is responding to. We can find this out by trying to isolate the object and examining the agent's emotional and behavioral responses to it, but I doubt that this parsing strategy will work in all cases. Even in the current example, Raphael's emotions are directed at the matches and their outcomes, not the social atmosphere. That's a very interesting claim, actually. How do you know exactly what Raphael's emotions are? It's like he's watching the game, but then he likes the scream of the crowd. But if you just wait to see the scream of the crowd, you wouldn't be improperly like primed for the scream. You have to like watch one for the other. But I mean, I'll take the author's word for it. Robbie's. The second possibility is that Raphael does not think football is valuable, but values it nonetheless. This, I claim, is a distinct phenomenon, and the agent recognizes that something she values meeting conditions 2 to 4 with respect to it is trivial and of no value, but she still regards her emotions and motivations toward it as appropriate. This need not entail the malady of spirit that Michael Stocker diagnoses in those who are motivated by what they do not believe valuable. Stocker's concerns apply to things that we value but consciously believe to be disvaluable, harmful, or wrong in some respect. Yeah, that's the smoking thing I said before. But my examples are guilty pleasures that we value but simply fail to believe valuable. Yeah, see, in the current atmosphere in this country, we've got a lot of people who claim to hate Trump. They're sort of virtue signaling, but I suspect they actually like him, and they think that what he's doing is actually not bad. So this is the sort of like guilty, they get a guilty pleasure from our current president. We do not regard such things as valuable. We are not actually guilty about them either, contrary to the name. Yeah, it's United States at the moment. Thus, Raphael does not see himself as having reasons to change his behavior because he is motivated to act by what he genuinely does, even though he refuses to judge football itself to be valuable. Yeah. It's like, you might not like Donald Trump, but you kind of like what he's doing. I think there's a lot of that now in this country. Many of the things that fall into this category are used for recreation or relaxation, however, which suggests that perhaps we value them only instrumentally. This is not the case. When we value something only instrumentally, we would ban it without a sense of loss if the goods it provides were available through alternative means. Suppose that I value something especially trashy or lurid. I suppose I value some especially trashy or lurid television show. I'm excited to see it and would be upset if it were canceled, experience these lower order emotions as appropriate, and watch the show regularly. It is possible that I believe the show is a waste of my time, that I ought to devote myself to other pursuits, but I suffer from weakness of will. Yeah. If so, then my activity might fall into the class Stocker deplores, but it is also possible that I believe the show provides much needed relaxation, that I am not emotionally susceptible merely to my recreation, but to specific activities that constitute my recreation. It is this show that I want to watch, even though I cannot name anything valuable about it. Yeah, my grandma watched General Hospital for years, and she loved that, and she didn't claim it to be like high TV, but she just wanted to watch, she had to watch General Hospital. That was like one of the most important parts of the day. It was my grandsonly duty to make sure that it was properly taped, and that she could watch it at a later time, because she didn't want to watch it when it was on during the day. That's how she relaxed, and it's like, this is the situation she was in. She knew what was like good and bad, but this is exactly how she wanted to relax. I admit that even within the category of trashy television, I'm not saying General Hospital is trashy. I'm just saying she could determine like what was a good television show and bad. And she just really liked her General Hospital. Didn't think it was like the greatest thing ever, but she loved watching it. Even within the category of trashy television shows, there are many others that would probably be more enjoyable or provide more relaxation. Well, maybe. But I am not emotionally or motivationally susceptible to those. In short, I value the show, even though I refuse to judge it good or valuable or worthy. Examples such as this, I claim, illustrate the phenomenon of valuing without believing valuable. An objector might insist that although I do not judge the show to be good, I nonetheless must have implicit belief that it is good. Well, something. The implicit belief could be tacit, like a belief that has not been consciously stored but is derivable from one's conscious beliefs, or it could be passively acquired and not consciously endorsed, like implicit bias. Yeah, there's a bunch of this going on in the U.S. But an implicit value judgment does not seem to fit the mold of tacit beliefs. But an implicit value judgment does not seem to fit the mold of other tacit beliefs, such as the belief that the moon is not made of cheese. In any case, it would not seem to follow logically or evidentially from one's other attitudes. More plausibly is that one has passively acquired the belief that, say, the trashy television show is valuable. While in general I do not think we should take our current judgments to be infallible indicators of belief, in this case I see no reason, independent of the desire to preserve a Scheffler-style account, to insist on the presence of a passively acquired value judgment. In any case, to repeat a line from earlier, it would seem that the only grounds for attributing a passively acquired belief would be the emotional and motivational dispositions of conditions 2 to 4, thus establishing at a minimum, the explanatory priority of those conditions to 1. Fair enough. A different objector might claim that we cannot experience our emotions as appropriate without believing their objects to be good. This is clearly false. However, with respect to emotions whose objects we believe to be bad, we experience our anger as appropriate when we are insulted, not always, but sometimes, and we experience our sadness as appropriate when a friendship ends. Cannot experience our emotions as appropriately. You can be irrational, and you know this. Happens every so often. You get irrationally angry, and you know you're angry, and it's just like, dagnabbit, this is bad. Even in the case of the trashy television show, which I do not believe, that would be severe. Well, yeah, that'd be the double speak, because I've been like that angry, and I'd be like, I'm more angry than I can really handle at the moment. But I knew that in the analytic sort of sense, in an abstract sense. Even in the case of the trashy television show, which I do not believe to be positively disvaluable, not only do I not feel conflicted about my lower order emotions. See, this lower order is sort of judgy. So that's part of the issue here, is like you're getting judgy about your emotions for the show, but those emotions present themselves as appropriate. The cancellation of the show would seem to me to merit sadness, even if for no other reason than I am emotionally vulnerable to it. You're like, I'm glad it's canceled, but I'm really sad about it. It's like it didn't deserve to be on the air. Like, finally someone at the network realized it was a terrible show. But I'm still sad. Finally, it might be objected that although we do not believe these objects valuable in an impersonal sense, we do believe them to have personal value. Those things which have personal or sentimental value are considered important only for oneself. But whereas the relationship I bear towards my tattered childhood doll is unique, such that no one else could stand in the relationship to it, there is nothing about my relationship to a trashy television show that precludes others from being emotionally and motivationally susceptible to it in the same way that I am. The existence of the phenomenon of believing valuable without valuing already establishes that valuing and evaluation are distinct activities. The existence of the phenomenon of valuing without believing valuable suggests that they are more distinct than many have thought. Even apart from the cases of merely personal value, agents can genuinely value things that they neither believe disvaluable nor believe valuable along a scale of impersonal value. This matters for the adequacy of our moral psychology, which should not assume human valuing always tracks what is valuable or even what is believed to be valuable. Yeah, we don't always know what we actually like. That's fair, and this sort of paper goes to that. Sometimes we find ourselves emotionally and motivationally susceptible to things that do not have positive value. Any theory of subjective value needs to account for this. Okay. Yeah. Not bad. This is the grand kicker, is that, look, we don't always get it right with the valuation. We have to be a bit more careful about it. There's no grand claim here. It's just a refinement on understanding value and belief about it, and how. Yeah, see, this is the issue here. Exactly, how does value and like the experience, how do you slice that up? We're not very clear about that, and this is going to explain some of it. Okay, that's fine. So if you want to leave a comment, give me a suggestion. I'll be back soon. I'll try to get a schedule up. At the moment, I'm locked at home, so do more of these. Have a good day. Stay safe.